Fake people fear one thing more than being exposed. It's being ignored by someone who sees through them. When you stop falling for the games, something strange happens. Not peace, not apologies. They panic. But not in a way most people expect. Fake people don't explode. They slither. They won't say, "I was wrong." They won't admit they lied. They won't own the manipulation. Instead, they switch masks. First, they'll act confused, then hurt. Then they'll spin a story where you become the villain. They play the victim not because they're innocent, but because it gives them control. They twist your words like shadows twisting in the dark. Silent, subtle, but dangerous. And when you speak the truth, they call it drama. When you draw a line, they say, "You've changed." But here's what they won't say out loud. "I can't fool you anymore." And that scares me. See, fake people don't want connection. They want control. And once they lose it, they'll use every trick in the book, guilt, gossip, gaslighting, to get it back. But the moment you stop reacting, when you stop dancing to their emotional games, that's when the mask slips. That's when you see who they really are. Now, let me tell you a story. One that might feel a little too familiar. There was a man named Oliver, kind soul, gave people the benefit of the doubt, believed the best in everyone. But life kept wounding him, not with swords, but with subtle betrayals. Friends who smiled to his face, but whispered behind his back. People who praised his kindness, only to use it. Every time he trusted words over actions, he got burned. Every time he stayed silent to keep the peace, it cost him his own. One evening, heart heavy, Oliver visited his grandfather, a quiet man known for watching more than speaking. He said, "Grandfather, why do people turn cold the moment I stop being easy to fool? Why do they flip when I finally see through the lies?" The old man didn't answer with words. He handed Oliver a spoonful of sugar and a glass of clear water. "Stir it," he said. Oliver did. The sugar disappeared. Sweetened the water. Easy. Smooth. Then the grandfather handed him a stone. "Now drop this in." Oliver obeyed. The stone fell, hard and fast. It sank to the bottom. Didn't move. Didn't dissolve. His grandfather looked him in the eye. "This is what you became, and they don't like it." Oliver blinked. "What do you mean?" "When you were easy to fool, you were like sugar, blending in, making things sweet, smooth, harmless. But when you became aware, when you stopped letting things slide, you became the stone. Solid, heavy, unmovable. Fake people hate what they can't soften. They don't miss the old you. They miss the version they could mold." That night, Oliver made a decision. No more shrinking, no more sugar. He stopped apologizing for his awareness, stopped explaining his boundaries, stopped letting guilt be a leash. And yes, some people vanished, but the real ones stayed. Because real doesn't fear your strength. Only the fake does. Fake people don't hate you because you changed. They hate you because you're no longer easy to control. They hate that you no longer explain yourself, that your silence now feels like a wall they can't climb. But remember this, a stone doesn't chase sugar, it just stays where it is. Firm, calm, unmoved. If they had to lie to love you, manipulate to keep you, guilt trip to guide you, they never respected you. You were a project, not a person. So let them leave, let them talk, let them play victim while you walk away with your power. because the ones who matter won't need to fool you to stay close. And if this message resonates with you, drop a comment below that says, "I see through the mask. I know my worth." Say it loud. Say it proud. Let the fake ones know you're not sugar anymore. Now, let's dive deeper, because how they react next gets even darker. Number 1, they start barking. When you stop biting the bait. When a person can't defend their truth, they start defending their lies. The moment fake people realize you've grown immune to their tricks, something shifts in them, and it's not humility. It's hostility. You'd think maybe they'd come clean, admit the lie, apologize, own their part. But that would require maturity. That would require courage. Instead, they get defensive, not just a little, aggressively so. Because to them, being exposed feels like death. Not a physical death, but the death of their illusion. And fake people? They live off illusion. They don't survive where truth breathes. They start twisting your words, shifting the blame, and suddenly you become the one with the attitude problem. They say things like, "You're just being dramatic," or "You're reading too much into it." But these aren't clarifications. They're shields. Defensive moves meant to distract you from the fact that you just caught them red-handed. Ever seen a snake in a corner? It doesn't run. It strikes, it hisses, coils, and goes for the throat because it's scared. Not brave, not strong, just desperate. And that's exactly what fake people do. When you corner them with truth, they don't reflect. They retaliate. Their panic doesn't come in silence. It comes in sharp, passive-aggressive words, in guilt-tripping silence, in sudden shifts of emotional weather. One minute, they're defensive. The next, they're weeping like you did something wrong. But here's what's really happening. They're trying to blind you with their smoke just long enough to slip away again. You might wonder, why don't they just admit it? Why go through all this mess? Because admitting they lied means losing control over you, and control is the only real currency they have in relationships. They don't want love. They want leverage, and leverage dies when truth walks in. This is why the Stoics had such a powerful grip on human behavior. Seneca said, "A wise man owns his faults, but a fool buries them in excuses." The moment someone hides behind defensiveness, instead of standing in truth, they're telling you who they are. Listen, they're not being misunderstood. They're being exposed. And exposure feels like war to someone who's been hiding in shadows. I remember someone I used to trust who had a way of flipping every situation on me. One day, I calmly confronted them with a fact. Just a simple, clear truth. And instead of listening, they smirked and said, "You always love making things bigger than they are." It wasn't denial. It was deflection, a bait. They wanted me to fight, to explain, to prove something, but I didn't. I looked at them and said, "I see what you're doing." No yelling, no long speech, just quiet recognition. And that silence. It hit harder than any argument. Because once you stop taking the bait, the game ends. Fake people aren't used to that. They're used to drama, to reactions, to winning control through chaos. But the moment you stay calm and let the truth speak for itself, they run out of moves. So if you're wondering how to handle people like this, start by doing less. Don't chase clarity from someone committed to confusion. Don't argue with someone allergic to truth. And don't shrink just because your strength makes them uncomfortable. A person who gets defensive instead of honest is showing you they're not safe. Let them bury themselves in excuses while you rise in awareness. You don't owe anyone a stage for their lies. You owe yourself peace. And the moment you realize that, they've already lost. Number 2, when the mask slips, they cry for sympathy. Some people ruin your name just to protect their own lies. The moment you stop playing their game, fake people don't get honest. They get theatrical. They don't apologize. They don't self-reflect. They don't grow. Instead, they reach for their favorite costume, the victim. When manipulation fails, they flip the script. Suddenly, they're the one who's been hurt. They're the misunderstood soul. They're the one who can't believe you'd treat them this way. And that's when things get slippery. They exaggerate stories, leave out key details, and retell the events in a way that paints you as the aggressor. You start asking yourself, did I go too far? Was I too harsh? Did I overreact? But pause, breathe. Ask a better question. Who actually benefited from this confusion? Because when fake people play the victim, it's not about healing. It's about hijacking the narrative. Imagine standing in front of a cracked mirror. No matter how still or upright you are, the reflection will always be bent. You begin to doubt what's real. That's what they want. To make you question your reality, just enough that they can slip away untouched. They don't seek clarity, they seek cover. Because if they can make you feel like the villain, they never have to look at themselves. And they're good at it. They'll cry in front of others, act betrayed, and say things like, "I was only trying to help. I don't know why they're treating me like this." Meanwhile, you're left stunned, trying to figure out how telling the truth turned into an attack. But here's the harsh reality. They don't care about resolution. They care about reputation. If they can weaponize sympathy to control the story, they will. And if they can turn others against you in the process, that's just a bonus. Epictetus once said, "To complain is always non-productive and never appropriate." Stoic wisdom teaches us that true strength isn't about being seen as right. It's about being right with yourself. And people who constantly play the victim aren't seeking truth. They're avoiding responsibility. Because to fake people, guilt is just another tool. A tool to pull you back into their web. I remember someone I trusted once broke that trust in a big way. When I calmly addressed it, they didn't take accountability. They didn't explain. Instead, they played the victim masterfully. Suddenly, they were the wounded one, shocked by my reaction, spinning tales to others about how I'd changed and how they just wanted peace. And for a second, it worked. I felt doubt. I felt guilt. But then I remembered. Real people take ownership. Fakes hide behind performance. So I stayed quiet. No defending, no explaining, no chasing their lies. And that silence, it exposed more than any argument ever could. Because when the mask doesn't get attention, it falls off on its own. If you're dealing with someone like this, remember, you don't owe a defense to someone twisting your truth. You don't have to make them understand what they're pretending not to see. And most of all, you don't have to carry guilt for someone else's refusal to grow. Let them keep the act. Let them tell their version. Let them stay trapped in the mirror they cracked. But you walk forward, clear, whole, and unshaken, because you're not responsible for their story. You're only responsible for your truth. And if this truth hit home, comment below. I don't owe anyone my peace. Let the world know you're done playing the part they wrote for you. If this exposed what you've been feeling but couldn't put into words, hit that like button, subscribe for more raw truth, and share this with someone who's waking up to the same game. Let's build a world where masks don't work anymore. Number 3, when guilt becomes a game, you break the controller. Guilt is the ghost fake people use to haunt your peace. When all else fails, when the lies stop working, when the victim act falls flat, fake people pull out their last emotional weapon, guilt. Because if they can't bend your mind with logic, they'll try to drown your heart in emotion. They'll say things that sound soft, but sting deep. After everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me. Or, I guess I just won't ask for anything again. Sometimes it's a sad sigh. Other times it's silence soaked in disappointment. But it's never about resolution. It's about control. You might pause and wonder, am I being too harsh? Should I have said it differently? Am I the bad one now? That's the trap. Guilt is their silent contract, the one you didn't agree to, but somehow feel bound by. And that's exactly how it works. It's not honest communication. It's emotional handcuffs, invisible but tight. You start to shrink. You start to explain. And just like that, you're back in their control without realizing it. But here's the truth. If someone respects you, they won't need to make you feel guilty just to get their way. They'll speak with clarity, not with manipulation. And guilt. It only sticks when you believe it's valid. Once you realize their concern isn't genuine, once you see that it's performance, not pain, the spell breaks. Imagine someone slowly wrapping chains around your mind. Each guilt trip is another link. But those chains, they're only real if you think you deserve them. That's why Stoic wisdom is so powerful here. Epictetus said, "He who controls his emotions controls his destiny." In other words, if you can stay calm in the middle of their guilt storms, they can't pull you under. You stop reacting. You stop explaining. And when they realize their guilt tactics don't move you anymore, they panic because they've lost the strings that once controlled you. I've been there. I've watched someone twist every boundary into betrayal, every no into, "You don't care about me." And at first, I fell for it. I'd explain, I'd apologize, I'd try to make peace. But the peace never came, just more guilt. Until one day, I said 5 quiet words. "I see what you're doing." No anger, no debate, just truth. And in that moment, the game ended. Because guilt only controls those still playing along. So if someone's making you question your worth every time you protect your peace, recognize the pattern, hold your line, and walk away from the emotional theater. Because when guilt becomes a game, your silence becomes the win. Number 4, when they can't control you, they try to contaminate you. When they can't reach you, they reach for your name. There's a certain kind of fake person that doesn't walk away quietly when they lose control over you. They reach into the shadows and start weaving lies. They don't just let go. They retaliate, not to your face, but behind your back. Because silence terrifies them, independence insults them. And the fact that you've stopped reacting, that drives them mad. So what do? They start poisoning the well, not with obvious attacks, but with whispers, subtle suggestions, little statements that seem harmless but are loaded with hidden venom. I don't want to say too much, but I just think people should know. And they let that sentence hang, unfinished, unanswered, so others fill in the blanks. so others carry the weight of their lies for them. And the more it's repeated, the more it starts to sound like truth. You might wonder, why would someone go that far? Why lie when they could just walk away? Because fake people can't stand watching you stand tall without them. If they can't control your mind, they'll try to control your image. And that's the dangerous part. They're not just trying to hurt you, they're trying to make others afraid of trusting you. And if they succeed, they isolate you without ever confronting you. Imagine a clean, pure well that's been around for years. The water inside, crystal clear, trusted, respected. Then one day someone sneaks in and drops a single drop of poison. It doesn't look any different. It still shines under the sun. But slowly, the villagers start whispering, "I heard that water isn't safe anymore." They don't know who said it, but they hesitate, they doubt, and that's all it takes. This is how reputation attacks work. Quiet, gradual, toxic. You won't always see the damage immediately, but over time, people start pulling away. Not because of what you did, but because of what they heard you did. But here's what Stoic wisdom teaches us. Truth stands even if there be no public support. It is self-sustained, said Marcus Aurelius. A lie needs constant tending. It needs new rumors, new listeners, and fresh drama to survive. But the truth? It just needs time. It stands on its own, even when no one claps for it. Even when the world turns its back for a moment. I've lived this story. Someone once tried to stain my name because they couldn't control my choices. At first, I was tempted to fight, to correct the record, to defend myself to everyone who had heard the lie. But then I realized the people who mattered didn't need an explanation. They knew me. They saw the truth in the way I lived. And the ones who believed the lies, they were never truly with me anyway. So I didn't chase the rumors. I stood still. I kept showing up, kept walking in truth. And over time, the same lies they spread started circling back on them. Because deception is a fragile weapon. It always shatters in the hands of the desperate. If someone is out there spreading falsehoods about you, remember this. You don't have to defend yourself to people who never gave you the courtesy of hearing your side. You don't need to dilute your truth just to be palatable to poisoned minds. Let your actions speak. Let your silence scream. And let time do what time always does, reveal. Because the well may be poisoned for a season, but clarity always returns. And when it does, the liars will be left drinking from their own deception, choking on the bitterness they brewed for someone else. Number 5. When sugarcoating fails, they come with candy-coated chains. Flattery is sweet on the tongue, but bitter in the aftermath if served with hidden intent. There's something unsettling about the way fake people suddenly shift gears. One minute they're guilt-tripping you, spreading lies, trying to pull strings, and the next they're showering you with compliments. Sweet words, kind gestures, over-the-top concern. You might ask yourself, wait, did they really change? Do they finally understand? But slow down, look closer, because when their tactics stop working, fake people don't give up. They just change masks. This isn't about growth. It's not real kindness. It's strategy, manipulation wrapped in charm. They'll say things like, "I've been thinking a lot lately," or "You've always meant so much to me," or "I never appreciated you before, but now I do." And on the surface, it sounds touching. It sounds like a breakthrough, but listen carefully. What's missing? Accountability. Not once do they own the way they treated you. Not once do they apologize for the manipulation, the betrayal, the emotional damage. All you'll hear is affection without reflection, praise without responsibility. It's bait. Think of it like this. A hunter who fails to catch prey by chasing it eventually stops running. Not out of compassion, but because it doesn't work. Instead, they set a trap. They leave out something sweet, something tempting, and wait. That's what fake kindness is. It's not about reconnection, it's about capture. And if you fall for the sugar, you'll end up right back where you started. Only this time the trap is quieter and tighter. You might wonder, but what if they really mean it this time? What if they've changed? That's the dangerous question, because people who've truly changed don't use kindness as a tactic. They don't skip the apology and jump to compliments. They don't erase history and expect you to pretend nothing happened. Real transformation walks hand in hand with humility. Fake transformation walks in charm and leaves truth behind. This is why Stoic wisdom cuts through the noise. Seneca once said, "The flatterer's goal is to please, not to benefit. It's not about helping you, it's about gaining access again. And you'll know it's fake when their niceness only shows up when your resistance does." I've seen this firsthand. Someone who once drained me emotionally, guilt trips, mind games, constant drama, suddenly flipped. Overnight, they were praising me, telling others how much I meant to them, acting like they'd seen the light. At first, I wanted to believe it. I thought, maybe they've changed. But something felt off. Not once did they mention the harm they caused. Not once did they take responsibility. It was all about how amazing I was now, so I'd lower my guard again. When I didn't bite, the sweetness faded and the coldness came right back. That's how I knew. It was never about me, it was about power. So how do you deal with this kind of fake affection? You trust patterns, not pretty words. You don't confuse a soft tone for a sincere heart. And most importantly, you remember this. Real love doesn't need to come with glitter to shine. It shows up the same way in public and in silence. It doesn't appear only when it wants something. If someone once tried to break you and now they're trying to charm you, don't fall for the performance. Watch for consistency. Real change speaks in actions over time, not in sudden sweetness the moment control is lost. So ask yourself, is this kindness or just another leash dipped in honey? And if you've come this far and seen through the act, comment below. I see through sweet lies. I protect my peace. Number 6. When they can't use you, they ghost you. Fake love doesn't fade, it vanishes the second it stops feeding. There's a certain kind of silence that speaks volumes. When fake people realize they can no longer control you, they don't argue, they don't explain, they just disappear. One day they're texting you constantly, calling, needing your attention. Then suddenly, it's radio silence. No message, no check-in, no goodbye. And you're left wondering, did I do something wrong? But here's the truth. Their absence isn't about your behavior, it's about your boundaries. The moment they realized you were no longer bending, no longer easy to sway, no longer playing the role they cast you in, they left. And not because they've grown or evolved. They left because they could no longer gain anything from staying. See, fake people don't build friendships, they build arrangements. As long as you provide something, validation, obedience, emotional support, they stick around. But the second you start saying no, the second you stop feeding their ego, they vanish. just like that. And it hurts, not because you lost someone real, but because you finally saw the truth of who they were. Think of it like a leech. It clings only while it can feed. The moment there's nothing left to take, it drops off. Not out of respect, but out of uselessness. Fake people are emotional leeches. Their loyalty is tied to their benefit. Their presence is conditional, and their kindness always temporary. You might ask, why didn't they fight to fix it? Why didn't they say goodbye? Because for them, it was never about connection. It was about control. When the strings snapped, the puppet show ended. No need for closure when there was never real care, just performance. This is where Stoic wisdom offers clarity. Aristotle once said, "A friend to all is a friend to none." A true friend doesn't vanish when power shifts. They don't bolt when you become self-aware. They may not always agree with you, but they respect you. Because real connection isn't built on convenience, it's built on character. I once had someone in my life who made me feel like we were deeply bonded, until I started setting boundaries. I stopped saying yes to every request. I stopped allowing the emotional drama. I stopped being their emotional crutch. And just like that, they were gone. No explanation, no thank you, just silence. And at first, I blamed myself. I wondered what I'd done, but in time I realized I didn't lose a friend. I removed a parasite. So what do you do when this happens? You don't chase, you don't beg, you don't shrink, you let them go. Their exit is your clarity. It's not rejection, it's protection. It's not loss, it's a lesson. You're not alone, you're just finally free. Number 7. When they can't break you, they try to break your circle. When they can't get to you, they go after the people around you. This is one of the most subtle and dangerous tactics fake people use when they realize you can't be manipulated. They stop trying to control you directly and instead begin working behind the scenes, quietly, strategically. They don't just want you to lose your power, they want you to lose your support. Because isolation isn't just about loneliness. It's about making you feel vulnerable, cornered, and easier to control again. You might notice it slowly. Friends acting different, colleagues pulling away, a shift in energy that you can't quite explain. You ask yourself, did I change? Did I do something wrong? But the truth is, it's not you, it's them. Or, more specifically, it's the false image of you being spread by someone who wants to control how others see you. Fake people fear independent minds. They fear those who think for themselves and can't be baited with guilt or flattery. So, when they fail to manipulate you, they move on to manipulating the narrative. They whisper things like, "I don't want to say too much, but something's off with them lately." Or, "You might want to be careful. They've changed." These statements don't accuse directly, but they infect minds subtly, like smoke drifting through a room, unseen but suffocating. This tactic works like weeds in a garden. You can have the strongest tree in the yard, deep roots, tall branches, but if weeds start growing at its base, stealing sunlight, choking the soil, the tree begins to weaken. Not because the tree got weaker, but because the space around it became hostile. That's what these lies do. They don't confront your strength head-on. They try to rot the ground you stand on. Quiet sabotage. But remember what Seneca said. Associate only with those who will make a better man of you. Your worth isn't measured by the number of people around you, but by the quality of those who remain when the noise fades. If someone can be turned against you with whispers, they were never on your side to begin with. And if someone distances themselves without even asking for your truth, consider their absence a blessing in disguise. I once dealt with this firsthand. Someone who couldn't control me anymore began planting doubts in the minds of others. For a while, I didn't notice, but slowly, conversations became colder. Invitations stopped coming. People looked at me with hesitation, and I wondered, what did I do wrong? Until I realized I wasn't being seen for who I was. I was being distorted through someone else's broken lens. I was tempted to explain myself, to defend, to clarify, but I didn't, because truth doesn't beg for understanding, it stands and waits. And that's exactly what I did. Over time, the fog lifted. The manipulator revealed themselves without my help, and those who stayed by my side, they proved they weren't fooled by smoke and mirrors. They saw me, not the illusion. So if someone is trying to isolate you, let them. Let the ones who never truly valued you walk away. And don't chase clarity from those who never cared to ask for it. Instead, double down on the real ones. The ones who see your soul, not the rumors. The ones who don't need reassurance because they already trust your character. You don't need to fight their lies. Just outlast them. And if you've ever been targeted like this, comment below. I protect my peace, not their perception. Hit like, share this with someone who needs it, and subscribe. Because when you stop shrinking for fake people, you start rising for yourself.